Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the Business Plugs Mixer. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Hi, my name is Linda Murray Bullard. They call me the Business Plug. You've just tuned into the Business Plugs Mixer. I am so excited about this conversation. If you have an entrepreneur in your circle, if you're an entrepreneur, if you know of an entrepreneur, if your friend's an entrepreneur, tag them, push this out. Every single entrepreneur friend you have is going to thank you if you give them what we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we get there, let me do my housekeeping so I can keep my people okay. So I am helping businesses become certified. My goal for 2024 is to have 124 businesses certified by November. Very, very ambitious goal. That's my goal. That's my goal. So if you are a small business, I am specifically working with minorities and women. So if you are a minority or a woman and you would like to get your business certified at the state level and at your local level, reach out to me. The links are all in wherever you're watching this video. Now, with that said and done, I love her name. I told her that. That would be my daughter's name if I had her. So you are welcome, Jabari Scott. Hey, Jabari.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so thankful for being here. Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic and to talk to your viewers and listeners. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. So tell them, who is Jabaria Scott?
Mhm. Well, I'm JEBORIA Scott, a leadership coach and management consultant. Most people just call me JB, so that's fine. What do I do? When you hear leadership coach and management consultant, you're like, okay, yeah, what does that mean? And so I am the person that you go to if you're an entrepreneur and you sell a product or service and you're passionate about your business, but you really enjoy the business of doing the business, putting out the work, but you don't like managing people that much and you don't know how to go about it and you don't know how to um, build your bench strength and leadership so that you keep your employees, you set clear guidelines and expectations, and you need someone to come in and provide that structure, help you with the performance management of piece, the piece where you manage and lead a team, you onboard a team, and you get your team going so that you have them for sustainability and longevity. Or if you're a corporate professional and you feel stuck in your career and you're managing a team and they're not getting along and you don't know how to build that team for a strong unit, or if you just want to take the next logical step in your career and you need some leadership development coaching, you want to have kind of like an advisor in your pocket. I'm the go-to person for all of those things. And I
I love it.
provide you the support. I come from a place where we're all good leaders because we lead our own lives. And sometimes we just need some support in those specific areas, especially when it comes to managing people and managing different personalities.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love this conversation because I get to deal with a lot of entrepreneurs. And whether they are veterans or whether they have, are just starting out, in order for them to get to their next level, they have to bring on people.
Yes.
And in their employment life, they may not have been the leader. They may have been the fry cook.
Mhm.
They may have been the
Right.
chef. They may have been all these different people. And I've even had people to work in professional corporate jobs, but they've never had to do the HR piece or the leadership piece.
Sure.
And so they've never had that training. And
Mhm.
so this what you're giving them is showing them how to manage people.
Right, right. It's very different going from a subject matter expert where you were
Mhm.
the person doing the job and now you have transferred those skills into entrepreneurship, or you were promoted in a position because you were the best person for that position and you were good at doing the job. Now you have to lead a team. That's where I come in. Not the recruitment piece, not the HR administrative piece. That's easy. Anybody can pull down a job description. You can hire. Most people are good at that piece. But what they're not so good at is after you are in that leadership role, when you are an entrepreneur, you are a leader. When you
Yeah,
get that promotion as a manager, you are a leader. And
yeah.
so the challenge comes in when you have to manage the performance, when you have to set clear guidelines and expectations, when you have to have challenging conversations, when you have to
Mhm.
check in and make sure the performance meets the expectations either of your company or of your business, and knowing how to set up that structure, knowing how to have those difficult conversations, knowing how to have those check in meetings to manage metrics and for optimal performance, that's where I come in. I
I
provide
love
that
it.
support. We work together strategically and I help you. I remove all of the guesswork to
I
make things
love it. I
easier.
love it. Because a lot of times when you're managing people, like I managed a team of 73 people, and I had 73 personalities
Right.
and 73 home. I had 73 personalities and 73 home problems and 73 lifestyles and
Absolutely.
preferences and
Right.
everything. And
And
so,
you're juggling that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And so, when you're trying to manage people, I also was a choir director of about
Mhm.
30 people. So I had like a
Mhm.
5-year-old and an 85-year-old.
Wow.
And how you manage people in these different generations
Yeah.
is very different.
Yeah. That makes a difference because workplaces are becoming more diverse and you
Hmm.
want to manage in a way that is sensitive, but also equitable and holds people accountable to the same standard no matter what, but taking in consideration that everybody has different performance levels, different skill sets, and there are different expectations for different roles within your company.
Absolutely, absolutely, because people learn differently. Like no,
Absolutely.
some people are auditory, some people are visual, some people hands on, some people are any part of that, right?
Yeah.
And so trying to manage people at a level where you can appreciate their differences.
Sure, absolutely. I think you bring up a very good point. To your point, just think about when you're training someone after you've completed the onboarding. People don't train in a way that makes room for different learning styles, like you said.
Mm,
You want
mm,
a holistic approach to training that's comprehensive. It's not just most people get trained, they either get training that's very isolated, they're learning in a silo, or they're self-taught on the job, which is
mm,
challenging for anyone coming into a new job even if you came with some preset skill sets or some past experience, you don't know the way that they need it done on that job. And so you
mm.
need some comprehensive, structured training. And so ain't a lot of people who aren't good managers or who aren't used to a systematic approach to training, they don't make room for all of the learning styles. And so sometimes they stick you in a corner with a manual or with a book, or they say, just you get it together instead of realizing, hey, there has to be some one on one training, some virtual training, some shadowing, some independent learning, some uh, hands on training. Just to make room for all of the different learning styles. And that's just one component of how do you ensure the success of your employee after they've been onboarded?
I love that. I love that. And then leading all the different personalities, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
because they have a home life.
right,
And so you have to recognize that your parents didn't raise them.
right.
And so it's
Absolutely.
important for
We're
you to
all different.
understand different households have different guidelines.
Absolutely, absolutely, because we're just very different people and we want to make sure that we're maintaining that respectful workplace, but at
Yes,
the same time making room for differences and different viewpoints, different perspectives on things. Sometimes you may not take the same path to get to the right answer, but you arrive at the right answer. And so
absolutely.
just making room for that and knowing how to empower your team, how to empower your employees to do their best work. And how do
Absolutely.
you do that? How do you support them? You know that you hired someone because you believe that they were good at the job, but how do you do your part as they do their part to meet the job expectations?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a big piece of it, right? I always
Absolutely.
talk about all the different wheels, the cog wheels in operating a business. But this right here, even if you're career minded, if you want to work for a corporation, and
Right,
let's say you got promoted because you're good at what you do,
right.
but that doesn't mean you're going to be good at leading.
And you know what? It's funny you say that because I agree 100%. It always strikes me as odd that a profession, management, leadership that is needed in every single business, no matter if it's in the corporate arena, whether it's an entrepreneurship, you need management, leadership, strong leadership in every business. But it is one of the professions, one of the roles that is undertrained and
Hmm.
underrated. We feel like
Absolutely.
we could just stick people in a role and not provide any training on how to manage other people, how to lead other people, how to inspire and motivate, how to coach, how to have um, challenging conversations. It is
Mm,
a science to it. There is there are theories on how to do change management, performance management, how to be a visionary, all of these things. And so I think that sometimes we just jump into entrepreneurship because we do have an idea, we're good at the business, we're going to be successful entrepreneurs, but we don't remember that eventually when we want to onboard a team, and that leadership piece is going to be necessary. Even if you hire a middle manager to help you with that, you're going to have to manage that person and make sure that they are following the guiding principles of your organization or your company. Same thing in corporate. You have to follow the guiding principles of the company, meet those goals and metrics, but training is going to be essential. That leadership development is essential. And a lot of people don't realize that uh, the support of leadership growth, leadership coaches, sorry, can take your leadership growth from good to great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of my favorite books, one of my favorite management books. Like I
Uh-huh.
always tell, my new students, I always tell them, get that book and read it. And it's
Hmm.
an old book because I just looked at it yesterday. It came out in 2001.
Sure,
And so
absolutely.
it's a very old book. However, the information is rinse and repeatable.
It's still good.
It's still valid. Absolutely. It's very valid.
Hmm.
And so when people hire, so when you're ready to hire that first person, like you can get in a whole lot of trouble simply by, first of all, any of those touch points, the application part, the onboarding part, the leading people once you get them on, and that's where you come in. Whereas if you have staff and you notice that your attrition rate is high because people come but they don't stay.
Sure,
And
sure.
then you say, well, they don't want to work. And that was what we were having a conversation before. You were saying one of the things that people say is people don't want to work.
Hmm.
And that may be true in some cases, but
Hmm.
if they applied for the position,
That's right. We have to assume that they want the job.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so if they apply for the position, be it a good job match or not,
Hmm.
if they apply for the position, you as a leader have to tool them with all the things that they're going to need.
Sure, absolutely.
And you
And
have to know how to get it to them.
absolutely, I agree with you 100%. And that's where I come in. After the onboarding has already taken place, after you've recruited your team, I come in and assess the management team to make sure that you have the support that you need, that you understand, when you take on a team, when you're developing a team, what your role is and responsibility is that in that dynamic, and what is their role to meet those expectations, and how do you manage performance in a way that helps you to ultimately be successful as an individual leader and as a team.
Absolutely, because that's
Mhm.
important.
Yeah.
All of that is important. And so if it's not bad that you don't have it, what's bad is that you don't know what you don't know and you're not willing to
Absolutely.
get it.
Absolutely, because we don't know what we don't know. And what you said is absolutely key. I've worked with people over the years, and whether it be individual clients, I've helped people in the banking industry, I've helped people in the school system who wanted to get promoted, who had trouble working with their team. I've helped businesses uh, who had problems with the team at large. I've
Mm,
helped businesses who have had problems with individual managers, who have had the team has had problems with their managers. So my experience has been diverse. And what I find is that people don't know what they don't know. And
mm,
so when we take a systematic approach at looking at what's been done, what's been said, what's been documented, or what has not been documented,
mm.
then I usually help my clients to really be able to take a clearer approach at, okay, this is where we are. We've assessed where we are. What are the needs of your team? What are the needs of the management team? And how do we move forward in a way that's productive and
Yes,
that's beneficial to the business and to
absolutely.
the people that who work in the business? Because at the end of the day, we're all people working in the business. The business is made up of people. And if
Absolutely.
we don't get that right, if we don't get the leadership piece right, if we don't get the people that the team dynamic right, then that can wreak havoc in your business or in your corporate environment. It's all about creating an organizational culture that is conducive to growth, productivity, meeting metrics, and harmony if you can achieve that.
Absolutely. And so, do you think that leadership is a trainable skill, or do you believe people have to be born with it?
And that's the big question. It's the great debate, right? And one
Yeah.
of the things that everybody wants to know. And when first started thinking about that question, I've read a few books like Growth Mindset by Carol
Mm.
Dweck and Outliers by Malcolm. I think Gladwell is the last name.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really
I'm
good with
reading that
names.
now.
But they are very good books that talk about the growth mindset and
Hmm.
how if you devote intentional practice towards something, towards
Hmm.
getting good at something,
Yeah.
towards being better at something, and you dedicate your intention, your energy, your focus on that, you can get better at it even if you didn't start out really good. So I think that while some people are born with some innate leadership ability and talent,
Hmm.
I think that definitely it is a skill that can be learned and honed over time. I don't
Absolutely.
think that leadership is just exclusive to people who are born with a particular skill set. Because when you think about it, leadership, like I said, is in every aspect of our lives. We all take a leading role or a follower's role in different dynamics, depending on what it is, whether it's our personal life or in the workspace, whether it's with our families or in our social groups. We all have opportunities to take that leading role. And so I would say that as long as you are willing to put in the work, meaning you're willing to read, you're willing to listen to audiobooks, you're willing to uh, review articles, you're willing to go to conferences, you're willing to look online and watch YouTube, you're willing to go to platforms like this where you learn from thought leaders, you're willing to work with leadership coach, you're willing to work with a mentor, whatever it is, however you like to receive information and you process information, as long as you're willing to put in the work and be intentional about your leadership growth, I think that if you started out as not so great at it, that you could become an excellent leader.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. And that makes it available for everyone. And not just collecting information, because great what I find is people will gather their info, they become information gatherers, right? And so working with someone like yourself, they're
Mhm.
actually able to implement,
Absolutely. Because
not just
taking
get.
action. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all about taking action. Because you
exactly.
can't be continual students.
Exactly, exactly. At some point, you have to start implementing those things you
Mhm.
learn. And
Yeah,
I find the
absolutely.
people that implement are leaps and bounds ahead of those that just attended. I went to this person. I follow that person. I've got accredited by this person. I've
Mhm.
had people say they've been accredited
Right.
by some very good thought leaders out there,
Sure.
but they're not implementing what they learned.
Right. And I think a lot of people are afraid, afraid to, especially if you're already working with a team, you're afraid
Mm.
to take that step. But time will pass anyway, and you're in that role. And if you don't commit to being successful in it, you may not be in that role for very long, or you may not be in business for very long. So
Exactly.
it is important to take the leap and put into practice what you have learned or the information that you've gathered, and you just learn from your mistakes. You learn from others and you learn from your own mistakes and you move forward. There's no one who's ever been in a leadership role or management position who hasn't made a mistake, myself
No,
included. So it's impossible to not make a mistake, but you can learn from it. You can
absolutely.
pivot quickly and you'll make few of the same mistakes as you move forward.
Absolutely. That's the idea. The
Mhm.
idea is that you're able to be trainable as long as you're coachable. That's what I
Absolutely.
find a lot of times, I laugh when I talk to these businesses
Mhm.
and the ones who adapt and like, oh yeah, I need this information are my best ones. But the
Yeah.
ones that cause me the challenge are the ones that said, well, I like doing it my way. I've been doing it this way for 80 years.
uh,
Yeah, those people who are stuck, like
yeah.
they're
Mhm.
stuck within their own mindsets.
Yeah,
It's-
absolutely.
yeah, so when you're talking about gleaning leadership training, how important is it to have an open mindset?
I think it's super important because, like I said, you're dealing with different people from different walks of life with different perspectives and approaches on things. And so, if you don't have an open mindset, it could get you into a lot of trouble, and you could make a lot of assumptions, and
Mm-hmm.
it may be a barrier for you to get along with people, because it's important for you to be able to work. I'm not saying be friendly or best friends with people. You don't have to be friends with everyone, but to be able to be approachable, to have an open mindset, to understand that there are different ways of looking at things. For
That
example,
right there.
if you have
Yeah.
a closed mindset and you don't have a growth mindset, you may think that your way is the only way because you have, like you said, done it for so long.
Yeah.
But it could be that another person has a different perspective, not better, not worse, just different, because
Yeah.
they have a different life experience. And if you're open to listening rather than talking or saying my way is the only way, you may be surprised at what you would learn. Like one
Mm.
of the things that I tell my clients is that don't make assumptions, like especially when they're managing performance and they have to give a corrective action. Don't
Mm.
make assumptions. It could be that this person was a stellar employee for a long time, and then over the last few months, you found that their performance has slipped. It doesn't meet expectations in the way that it should.
Mm.
I always say be curious and don't make assumptions during the conversation. You may have supporting documentation or some facts, but it's better to say, hey, I noticed that you're really good at this and you're usually on time with this and you usually do this well. But I noticed lately this has been happening, this has been slipping in. What's going on? Can you tell me what's happening? And you may be surprised at what you learn. And
Mm.
because you didn't make assumptions and you were open to listening, it could be totally different from what you thought it was, and your original assumption could have been wrong. Or it could have been that it was different than what you thought. Or it could be that you were right in your assumption and the facts that you gathered, and then you can reinforce what the expectations are. But being curious helps you not to get egg on your face.
Mm.
And it also shows you as a person who is not only approachable, but fair. And people can respect people who are fair, even if they don't like you. And it
Mm.
doesn't mean that if you take this approach, you can't hold someone accountable to doing their job. I'm all for accountability and meeting expectations as outlined in the job description. However, being curious will allow you a little wiggle room if it wasn't what you assumed what it was in the beginning, and or it'll allow you to be firm in holding people accountable to those expectations because you gave them an opportunity to tell you from their perspective what occurred.
Absolutely. Great, great, great information because I had a conversation with someone. They were like, well, this person, I was just getting ready to promote her and then she went left. And, then they were like, something happened. But then getting her to talk about, well, what was that? That was maybe an opportunity to redirect
Mhm.
a good
Absolutely.
employee as opposed to losing and having to start all over.
Absolutely.
A-
Absolutely.
and that's the
Mhm.
whole thing of leadership. Like people talk about, it is easier to manage the staff that you have than to constantly bring on new staff. That is quite
Absolutely.
expensive.
Absolutely, it can be. And people don't realize that there is a price tag that is associated with that. You don't want your business to be a revolving door of
No,
people who are dissatisfied. And
no,
not just because it's an expensive, it can be a high price tag, but also your branding, your business branding doesn't just have to do with what your customers say about you. It also has to do with what your employees say about you. And I've
absolutely.
had experiences where people were dissatisfied with the job and with the entrepreneur or with the boss, but they would say, I didn't like them, but they were fair,
Yeah, that
or
absolutely.
so.
And that's what you want. So talk about, you've given us access to a free ebook. So talk to us about your ebook.
So actually, the link is for a free digital download. It
Mm-hmm.
is for a guide for if you have to do performance employee reviews. So if you have to do employees performance reviews and you don't know how to have that difficult conversation, it is kind of like a cheat sheet telling you the best practice tips on things to do and what to say. And it has an audio companion guide where I'm explaining exactly how to tackle those difficult conversations.
I love that. That's more than an ebook. I love that is something that's usable
Yeah,
because a lot of times people don't, when you're operating in a small business, people don't know that you're even supposed to have performance reviews.
yeah,
I've worked
absolutely.
I've worked with some municipalities that haven't given performance reviews in several years.
Right. And people don't understand the importance of that. I'm going to briefly talk about that because that's so key. No matter if you're a small business and you have 10 employees or 5 employees, no matter if you have two, it is important to have that on a cycle. And most corporate companies have a performance review cycle. So, they have that down pat. But for those who don't have that, they have business on their own, they have a small team or a growing team. Maybe you have a mid-level business and you're scaling it, but not conducting regular performance reviews leaves a lot out and leaves a lot open to personal interpretation. Also, you don't have clear documentation on how that person met or didn't meet the expectations of that job and how they perform that role. And then it means that you're not having regular conversations. And when I say conversations, it doesn't mean that, we're sitting down and it has to be something disciplinary because people only think about performance reviews and it being bad. No, sometimes it's about personal growth for that person.
Mm,
It's about better communication. Sometimes you, as the leader, you learn things to improve the business.
absolutely.
Sometimes they're giving you a heads up on things that are coming up that you wouldn't normally have had the opportunity to learn or know about how to meet your customer needs a little bit better because you don't check in with them frequently. And
Mm,
so those employee appraisals provide an opportunity for you to check in, for you to manage performance, for you to document if they're not meeting expectations, and also tell them when they're doing well.
I love it. I love it.
And a lot of those are missed opportunities because we're not having those conversations because we're so busy with the business of doing the work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we don't realize that managing employee performance is also part of the work.
It's part of the work. It's the biggest part of the work because I one of the young ladies in Nashville that I met, um, I forget her name, Sherry in Nashville. She wrote Lunch with Lucy, which is a book where she talks about she sold her business for $40 million, but she paid all the people who helped her get there because she said in her book she talks about her employees being her number one, like they're before the customers, the shareholders, the stakeholders, everybody.
Mm,
Because if they didn't do their jobs, then she wouldn't have all these other people, you
absolutely.
know. And so understanding that your employees are that important, I
They are.
commend her. $40 million is not a small dollar, you know. But she sold her business for that recently. And then she wrote the book about it. So I
Yeah,
commend people like her who see the importance of having a good leadership background and how they treat their people. And it's more
absolutely.
than just them doing the work.
Absolutely. Just what you said, I agree 100%. Absolutely.
So, are there any takeaways you would like anyone that's viewing this
Sure.
broadcast to take away from this interview?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, you may say that it's too much work, it's not worth it. I'm fine the way I am. And so you're either going to do the work on the front end or the back end when it
Mm.
costs you more effort, attention,
Mm.
and money.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to set up those systems early on, even if you don't have a clue what it's supposed to look like. I take away all the guesswork. I
Mm.
help you decide where your pain points are. We talk about what your pain points are. I help you determine and make an assessment of where the gaps are
Mm.
in the managing bench strength. And we just move from there. We set up a systematic approach on how you strengthen your team and ensure that you are performing in a successful way when it comes to managing your team and coaching your team. And if you work in a corporate space and you are a manager or you hope to be someday, or you are in a leadership position, and you are struggling either in your personal role or with your team, I am here to support you. And like I said, I remove the guesswork so you don't have to figure it out on your own. A lot of the time we suffer in silence because we don't know the first next step to take. And
Mm.
sometimes we don't have someone who is objective and in our
Yes.
corner to support us, and to figure out what direction should we go in? How do I solve this problem? And so we do nothing about it or we suffer in silence. And so you don't have to figure it out on your own. If you want to be a better leader, I can support you. If you want to prepare for your next leadership role, I can support you. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to onboard staff soon and know how to manage them, or you have a current team and you have some particular struggles, then we can talk about them and I can support you in that way too. I'm here to support
I love it. I
100%.
love it. If you hold for a minute, my name is Linda Murray Bullock. They call me the business plug. You've just witnessed leadership skills and why they're important for you. So join the conversation. Go ahead and reach out to her in the links that are wherever you're watching this video. And I'll see you next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Business Plugs Mixer. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and have a great week.
Thank
Good
you.
night.